May 1945. Germany is collapsing. Berlin has fallen. Allied troops are racing east, not to fight, but to occupy. And inside a factory in Britain, something extraordinary is happening. 6 brand new tanks roll out of the production line at Vauxhall Motors. They are massive, boxy, ominous. Each one is wrapped in 152 millimeters of frontal armor, thicker than almost anything that had ever rolled on tracks. Mounted in their turrets is the British 17-pounder anti-tank gun, a weapon feared by German crews from Normandy to the Rhine. At combat range, it could punch through the front of a Tiger I from more than 1,700 meters away. From the front, no German tank gun could kill them. Not the Panzer IV. Not the Panther. Not even the Tiger. They were, on paper, almost invulnerable. And yet, they would never fire a single shot in anger. Because the war ended the same week they were completed. This was the A43 Black Prince, the final, most extreme evolution of Britain's wartime tank philosophy. A tank designed for a war that no longer existed. But to understand why the Black Prince was built, and why it ultimately failed, we have to go back to the beginning. Britain's tank problem. In 1940, Britain learned a brutal lesson in France. German armored divisions did not fight like the First World War. They did not crawl forward behind infantry. They did not wait. They broke through, moved fast, and shattered command structures before defenders could react. British tanks, by contrast, were divided by doctrine. There were cruiser tanks, fast, lightly armored, meant to exploit breakthroughs. And there were infantry tanks, slow, heavily armored machines designed to advance at walking pace alongside foot soldiers. The most famous of these infantry tanks was the Churchill. On paper, the Churchill was a disaster. Early models broke down constantly. They were undergunned, slow, and mechanically unreliable. But the battlefield had a way of refining bad ideas into good ones. The redemption of the Churchill. By 1942 and 1943, the Churchill had found its role. Its long, low hull allowed it to climb slopes other tanks couldn't. Its thick armor let it survive hits that would cripple faster machines. And most importantly, it could keep moving forward under fire. At Dieppe, in Italy, and later in Normandy, the Churchill proved something vital. Survivability mattered more than speed when attacking prepared defenses. But by 1944, a new problem emerged. German tanks had evolved faster. The Panther's long-barreled 75mm gun. The Tiger's terrifying 88mm. Churchills could survive hits, but they struggled to kill back. The solution seemed obvious. If the Churchill was already slow, why not make it even heavier, and arm it with the most powerful gun Britain had? The birth of the Black Prince. In 1943, British engineers were given a clear directive. Take the Churchill concept to its absolute limit. The result was the A43 Black Prince. It was not a new tank, it was an enlarged Churchill. The hull was widened to accommodate a much larger turret. The armor was thickened across the front and sides. And inside that turret went the 17-pounder, the same gun that turned Shermans into deadly tank killers. On the drawing board, the Black Prince looked unstoppable. Frontal armor so thick it could shrug off German fire. A gun powerful enough to destroy anything it faced. A profile still low enough to exploit hold-down positions. British designers believed they had finally created the ultimate infantry tank, a machine that could advance into firestorms and survive. But one fatal compromise remained. The engine that doomed it. Despite its massive increase in weight, over 50 tons, the Black Prince used the same engine as the Churchill. No upgrade. No redesign. No additional horsepower. The result was catastrophic. The Black Prince could barely reach 10 miles per hour on roads. Off-road, it was even slower. In battlefield terms, it was slower than a jogging infantryman. It wasn't just inconvenient, it was dangerous. By 1944, warfare had become fluid, fast, and brutal. Artillery, air power, and mobile anti-tank units punished anything that couldn't reposition quickly. A tank that couldn't retreat, couldn't exploit breakthroughs, couldn't respond to threats, was already obsolete. And yet, production continued, because Britain believed it still needed a tank that could not be killed. Too strong for its own war. By early 1945, the Black Prince was nearing completion. German armor was already shattered. Fuel shortages crippled panzer divisions. Allied air superiority made slow movement a death sentence. And then, something else appeared. A new British tank concept, one that ignored old doctrine entirely. It was faster, better armed, and designed not for trench warfare, but for modern, mobile combat. Its name was Centurion, and the moment it arrived, the Black Prince's fate was sealed. Too strong for its own war. By early 1945, the Black Prince was nearing completion. German armor was already shattered. Fuel shortages crippled panzer divisions. Allied air superiority made slow movement a death sentence. And then, something else appeared. A new British tank concept, one that ignored old doctrine entirely. It was faster, better armed, and designed not for trench warfare, but for modern, mobile combat. Its name was Centurion, and the moment it arrived, the Black Prince's fate was sealed. By early 1945, the war in Europe was no longer about survival. It was about speed. Allied armies were not smashing through fortified lines anymore. They were racing across open ground, encircling cities, collapsing resistance before it could reorganize. And into this new kind of war rolled the Black Prince. On the test grounds, the first thing engineers noticed was not its gun. It was its weight. At over 50 tons, the Black Prince was heavier than a WWII, yet powered by the same engine as a standard Churchill. Every movement felt strained. Every turn bled momentum. Acceleration was glacial. Climbing slopes required careful planning. Cross-country travel pushed the drivetrain to its limits. This was not a tank that reacted to battle. It was a tank that had to arrive early, or not at all. Firepower without mobility. When firing trials began, the Black Prince finally showed its teeth. The 17-pounder was already a proven killer. In Normandy, the same gun, mounted on Sherman Fireflies, had shattered German heavy armor at ranges once thought impossible. Inside the Black Prince's larger turret, the gun had better cruise space, better ammunition handling, and improved firing stability. On paper, the results were devastating. Against the WWII profile plates, penetration was reliable beyond 1,700 meters. Even angled armor offered little comfort. Against Panthers, the outcome was worse. If the Black Prince fired first, the enemy tank died. But the tests revealed a cruel paradox. The Black Prince could kill anything, but it struggled to get into position to do so. The armor that made it untouchable. Then came survivability trials. This was where the Black Prince truly excelled. Its 152mm frontal armor resisted every German anti-tank gun Britain could test against it. Even high-velocity rounds that shredded Cromwell's and Sherman's failed to penetrate. From the front, the Black Prince was effectively immune. In static defense, hull down behind ridgelines or rubble, it was terrifying. A Black Prince guarding a road could dominate it for hours. But war was no longer fought road by road. It was fought by maneuver. And this is where reality intruded. A tank designed for yesterday. By 1945, German tactics had changed out of necessity. Instead of tank duels, they relied on ambushes, Panzerfaust teams, mobile guns, and air attacks. A tank that couldn't reposition quickly became a magnet for artillery. A tank that couldn't retreat became a fixed target. The Black Prince's armor could stop shells. But it couldn't outrun bombing runs. It couldn't escape coordinated strikes. It couldn't exploit breakthroughs made by faster units. British testers wrote increasingly blunt reports. The tank was too slow for exploitation, too sluggish for rapid redeployment, too heavy for many bridges in Western Europe. In short, it survived the kind of war that no longer existed. The comparison that killed the project. Then the Black Prince was tested alongside a very different machine. Not an infantry tank. Not a cruiser tank. A universal tank. The Centurion. The difference was shocking. Where the Black Prince lumbered, the Centurion surged forward. Where the Black Prince relied on sheer armor, the Centurion combined mobility, slope protection, and firepower. It carried a powerful gun. It crossed ground faster. It could adapt. The Centurion was not invulnerable. But it didn't need to be. It could choose when to fight. British officers watching the trials understood immediately. The Black Prince was the final expression of an old idea. The Centurion was the beginning of a new one. The end before the beginning. Still, production continued briefly. 6 Black Princes were completed. 6 machines that represented everything British engineers had learned about protection, firepower, and endurance. And yet, they never left Britain. They never faced enemy fire. They never fired in combat. Germany surrendered in May 1945. The Black Prince rolled out of the factory gates into irrelevance. But its story does not end in failure. Because the Black Prince proved something vital. Britain could build a tank the enemy could not kill. It simply learned, too late, that survivability alone was no longer enough. The Black Prince never went to war. It never crossed a river under fire. Never faced a panther in the fog. Never took a hit in anger. And yet, it may be one of the most important tanks Britain ever built. Because the Black Prince answered a question British designers had been asking since 1940. What if a tank simply could not be killed? For the first time, Britain had the answer. The Black Prince proved that British industry could produce armor thick enough, and firepower strong enough, to dominate any battlefield of the Second World War. From the front, it was untouchable. From the gun, it was lethal. If it had arrived in 1942, if it had rolled into Normandy in 1944, German tank crews would have feared it. But war does not reward. Almost. The lesson written in steel. By 1945, the Black Prince exposed the hard truth. Survivability alone was no longer victory. Modern war had changed shape. Speed was now protection. Mobility was now survival. Flexibility mattered more than raw thickness of armor. The Black Prince could absorb punishment. But it could not control the battlefield. It could hold ground. But it could not shape the fight. And that realization reshaped British tank doctrine forever. The death of the infantry tank. For decades, Britain had separated tanks by role. Infantry tanks advanced slowly with soldiers. Cruiser tanks raced ahead to exploit breakthroughs. The Black Prince was the final, heaviest expression of that old thinking. And it proved that the concept had reached a dead end. Because the battlefield no longer waited. There was no safe pace. No walking speed, war. Anything that couldn't move fast enough to adapt was doomed, no matter how strong it was. The Black Prince didn't fail because it was badly designed. It failed because its entire philosophy was obsolete. What the Black Prince gave to the future. But the story doesn't end with cancellation. Everything the Black Prince taught British engineers was carried forward. The need for strong frontal protection, retained. The importance of powerful, long-range firepower, retained. Crew ergonomics, internal space, survivability, retained. What was discarded was the idea that a tank should accept slowness as a price for safety. The next generation would demand all three. Firepower, protection, mobility. No compromises. A shadow cast forward. When Britain committed fully to its new universal tank concept, the contrast was unmistakable. Here was a machine that could move with infantry, or outrun them. that could fight defensively, or exploit breakthroughs, that could survive hits, but also avoid them. The Black Prince had shown what was possible. Its successor showed what was necessary. And in doing so, it quietly ended an era that began in the trenches of the First World War. 6 tanks, no battles, 1 message. Only 6 Black Princes were ever built. They became test vehicles, museum pieces, historical footnotes. To some, they look like failures. But that's the wrong way to remember them. Because the Black Prince did exactly what a prototype is meant to do. It revealed the future, by showing what didn't belong in it. The cruel timing of perfection. The Black Prince was perfect. For the wrong war. It arrived when German armor was already broken. When air power ruled the battlefield. When speed decided victory faster than armor thickness ever could. It was a tank that proved British engineers could build something the enemy could not kill. And in doing so, it proved something even more important. Invulnerability is meaningless if you can't arrive in time to matter. Final reflection. History remembers the tanks that burned cities. The ones that charged beaches. The ones that turned the tide in battle. But some machines matter not for what they did, but for what they taught. The Black Prince never fired a shot. Yet its lesson echoes through every modern tank that followed. Survive, but move. Hit hard, but adapt. And never design for the last war. When the next one is already waiting.